we started training, like I said, as very young, when I was 14 years old. We got a hold of or I should say it the other way around, Army Vietnam veteran got a hold of us. And this guy, he lived in our town, he lived outside of town actually, and he trained people to go into the Special Forces. This is how this all started for me. All right, my brother said, hey, we need to get this guy to train us, because he has an impeccable record of training boys and the men to go into the Special Forces. Today he has 5 SEALs, 4 Green Berets, a multitude of Rangers, and a multitude of Marines, so he knows what he's doing. So we got this guy to train us, all right? Started training with him early. And the first encounter with this guy was, he told us to show up at his house. So I come running up to his house. He's out there waiting on us, all right? And as we're running to the yard, he's pointing at us, he's pointing at the ground, he's pointing at his watch, he's pointing at us. And as we got closer, you realize the only thing coming out of his mouth was profanity. That was it. And when we got there, he stopped us in the street, he drew a line in the dirt in front of us. He's like, every day you come here, I'm going to draw a line in front of you and ask you to cross it. Being in the Special Forces is a voluntary program. You can quit anytime you want. Quit right now, quit while I'm training you, quit while you're in SEAL training. As a Navy SEAL in combat, you don't want to do that job anymore, you say, I'm done, I quit, and it's over. And that's the truth. He said, you cross this line, I'm going to do everything I can to break you. I'm going to beat you, mentally, physically, and emotionally. You're going to bleed here. I ain't your mama. I don't care whether you live or die. He's like, you want some of this, boy, cross the line. So at 14, you think you're invincible, right? At least we did. So we crossed it stupidly. And I'll never forget this. He was like, all right, everybody on your faces, give me 300 push-ups for being late. And this is my first life lesson with him, okay? And this stands true to this very day. It's one of them deals where if someone tells you to be somewhere at a certain time, you're always, you young guys, pay attention. When someone tells you to be somewhere at a certain time, you're 15 minutes early. That's what time is. Not 4:30, come to find out. So he goes, we start banging these push-ups out. We get to about 200 and something, and some of us were going down while the rest of us were coming up. And he's like, stop what you're doing. As a team, you're going to go down together, and you're going to come up together. You're going to live together, and you're going to die together. You're not a team. Start over. We started over, push him out again, get to 100 and something. He's like, some of us were going down while the rest of us were coming up. He's like, I guess you didn't hear what I said. As a team, you're going to go down together, and you're going to come up together. You're going to live together, and you're going to die together. You're not a team. Start over. And if he wasn't saying that phrase to us, the only other thing coming out of his mouth was profanity. That was it. And about 3 hours go by. He's got us out on the yard trying to bang these push-ups out. We get to about 1 or 2. The rest of us are doing the chicken neck and the one-arm dip and all that stuff like that. And eventually he got so sick and tired of us that he was like, look, I'm disgusted with you. I'm disgusted at you. Get off my property. So he ran us off his property, and as we were running down the street, he's like, look, when you get home, walk right up to your daddy, slap him in the face, and tell him to start over because he screwed up on you. This is what he said. He goes, if you want to do this again tomorrow, show up on time. Don't ever be late again. He's like, there's one certainty in life, and that's you're going to die and I'm going to die. My time is very valuable to me. Everybody out here, we're all going to meet our maker. You can sidestep it a little bit or prolong it all you want, but eventually you're going to die. And once you accept the fact that you're going to die, you'd be surprised how much life you could actually live. He's like, show up again tomorrow. And I did. I showed up the next day on time. And I did that from the time I was 14 years old to the time I finished college. I was never late again, not one time. And as I grew from a boy into a young man, into an adult, and I got stronger mentally, physically, and emotionally, all the workouts and everything he did changed. Guys came and went or whatever, but our core group stayed there. I remember one of the last workouts we were doing with him, he had us running down the freeway. We were carrying a telephone pole. We dropped it on this kid's head, split his head open, he rolled down the ditch. And we put the log down. And he was following us in his vehicle. That's what he do. And he got out and he started screaming at us because we put the log down. He didn't tell us we could. Military guys, you know what I'm talking about. And finally, we were down there in the push-up position. We were waiting on the ambulance to come get this kid. He's like, look, pay attention because I'm going to tell you something that I ain't never told you before. I'm going to tell you why I do the things that I do to you. I sit up at night and think of sadistic things to throw at you. I purposely throw things at you that I know you can't pass. He's like, you're a human being. You ain't the Hulk. That's what he'd always tell us. He's like, you ain't the Hulk. You bleed just like everybody else. I'm waiting to see when I hit you, no matter how hard I hit you, if I hit you and knock you stupid, or if I hit you and knock you out. When you wake up, if you come at me like a rampaging beast, or if you quit. Because if you quit right here, you'll be a quitter for the rest of your life. Go home, brush your teeth with a pistol. That's what he tells us. 14 years old. And it was true. I mean, everybody in here set goals for yourself. You know, do something like this to understand what I'm talking about. You set a goal for yourself, you work at it, you accomplish it, the flame builds up in your belly, you feel stronger. Billy would always tell us to set goals for ourselves because the minute we don't is when you die. So I took everything he taught me. I left. I joined the Navy. Biggest mistake I ever made. If I could do it all over again, I'd definitely join the Air Force. And that's not a joke either. So, all the good-looking women are. So I I showed up there and it was bad because I'm a gunfighter. That's what I do. Okay, and I was born and raised to do that. And I was like, I don't need to be on and nothing against the regular Navy guys. I just couldn't be on a boat for 6 months out at sea on the USS Never Die. Never seen the light of day. I was like, man, I'm one way. And they're like, where's that line? He's like, right over there. So I had to pass a series of tests to qualify to go to a school to become a Navy SEAL. Okay, the school's called BUDS training, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. Any man and every man on this planet who's a Navy SEAL has to go through that schoolhouse. All right, I'm sure there's some guys out here who know some Navy SEALs. Your neighbor's a SEAL. Some guy got a job at your company because he's a SEAL. If he didn't go to school out there, he's lying to you. Quit hanging out with him, fire him, or call me. I'll burn his house down for you. it absolutely baffles me how, and all the guys in uniform, you'll attest to this. There are guys who put so much effort into being something that they're not that it would be easier to do it. Right? Am I right? It's ridiculous, man. I'm like, hey, buddy, you got problems. So I showed up to BUDS training, all right? And BUDS it's 3 phases. First phase, second phase, and third phase. First phase, 13 weeks. Second phase, 11 weeks. And third phase is 12 weeks. Well, first, I'll just talk briefly about it. First phase is the gut check. It's a beat down. Mental and physical torture to make sure you have what it takes to go into follow-on training. All right? Second phase is our dive phase. It's what separates us from the other special forces, is our ability to work underwater. 73.42% of the globe's covered in it. We can be anywhere on it 24 hours. That's our mantra. All right? I was a scuba diver before I got into the SEAL teams. I'm sure there's some divers out here. So you know the 60 feet for 60 minutes and looking at the fish and the boat and all that crap, you know, the pretty stuff underwater. Normal dive for us is usually 4 to 6 hours. That's in the pitch black water. Can't see your hand in front of your face. My longest dive while I was in the SEAL team was 10 hours and 47 minutes. All right? I actually fell asleep and woke up underwater twice. Don't ever do that. So, all right? We lose more people in this phase than any other phase of training because being underwater is unnatural to people. Okay, guys just can't handle it. And after that, we go to third phase. That's our weapons of demolition. All right, there's a weapon system on this planet that our enemy utilizes or that we utilize. We can operate it. All right, we learn how to build bombs, blow cars up, houses up, stuff like that, all basic stuff. And then we graduate. Now, when I started training day 1, week 1, minute 1, there's 164 men in my class from all walks of life. Country boys, city boys, professional athletes, high school athletes, doctors, lawyers, accountants, Wall Street guys. My brother had a Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey balloon clown in his BUDS class. And I know that because I was there when he was going through training, and then for 2 miles there was balloon animals up and down the beach, right? And he quit. He didn't make it. So that ought to tell you something right there. If you're a balloon clown and you quit because BUDS instructors are making you make balloon animals for 2 days, so it's ridiculous. Like I said, when I showed up there, 164 men in my class. When I graduated, there were 10 men left. And my brother had 254 guys in his class, and there were 16 guys left. That give you an idea of the attrition rate. What this school does is it forms a bond tighter than any blood bond you'll have with anybody. Period. Because the guys we start training with, we go to follow-on training with, we go to combat with, we live and die with. That's the way it is. I got on the hook for Afghanistan in 2005. I came in the military when I was in 98. I had been a couple other places, had some fun around, and then wound up in Afghanistan. And this is when Operation Red Wing came down the pipe. Now, basically, just on Red Wing was we were going after a guy named Ahmad Shah, high-ranking individual in what used to be Bin Laden's army before we blew his head off his neck. And he had his own militia at his disposal, all right? And the conventional forces, they've been chasing him for about 2 years. Finally, they slipped him across our desk, and we're like, yeah, we'll go get him. And this is how this all started. So the ramp dropped on the back of the helicopter, pushed us out of the back. They dropped us 9,700-something feet into a snowbank. All right. The team consisted of a guy by the name of Matt Axelson. I'll refer to him as Axe. Okay. If you've seen the movie, you read the story, you know all about Matt Axelson. He was our point man, our primary sniper. Behind him was Mike Murphy. He was our officer in charge. Behind him was Danny Dietz. Danny had the radio. He was our communicator. Anything that could be checked in, waypoints, anything like that, that was Danny's job. And I was the team leader. I was rear security. I was the biggest and the slowest. That was our team. 4-man element. And we've been operating together for about 3.5 months. Typical mission set for us is they drop us in under the cover of darkness, free fall out of an airplane, fast up out of a helicopter, go on horseback, Humvee, whatever it is, and sneak into the mountains as far as we possibly could, chasing one guy, head of the snake. We don't go after militias or anything like that. That's not the way we're set up. And we camp out in somebody's backyard anywhere from 6 to 10 days, taking video, taking notes, gaining intel, doing all that stuff we needed to do. Into that, we got the green light. We'd either kill him or go down there and I'd snatch him out of there and interrogate him. Whatever I got out of him, I'd go do something else. And that's how we work. Same thing on Operation Red Wing. That's how that was this mission. Sniper Overwatch Recce. Well, we got to our objective. We found that village. So for those of you who've been to Afghanistan, imagine a volcano in your head with a bunch of beehives stuck in it. Hypothetically, that's what a village in Afghanistan looks like. It's just stuck right there and has been for thousands of years. Craziest thing you ever seen. Well, we had managed to get ourselves up to the top of this mountain. And I mean, I put my boot right on the edge of it and looked straight down, and about 7,500 feet below us was the start of our village. Right underneath us was a grove of trees, probably 200 meters down the mountain and 300 meters wide. After that, it turned into green grass for 100 meters maybe. The two ridge lines bowed together and they swung back out and created that volcano, if you will. And then there was our village. So we just rappelled down into those trees and started doing our job. And then Axe and Mikey, they wanted to go find a different spot. So they did. And they packed up, left, came back about an hour later. We all packed up shop and crawled to the top of the mountain again, which is about 30 feet above my head. Got up on this, in the military it's called the finger. It's a long platform of dirt, really. So we started walking all the way down it, and this is where the goat herders, all that stuff, this is where that went down. All right? And what really happened, and for those of you who haven't read the book but seen the movie, it was reversed. And I don't know why they did that. I wasn't on set when that happened, otherwise it wouldn't have, but we laid up in there and started watching the target, and all of a sudden, a pair of little brown legs jumped over the muzzle of my gun. And let me tell you something, it got my attention fast. All right, I didn't hear this guy, I didn't see him, I didn't smell him. You guys know what I'm talking about on that one. I was like, I'm not going to say I was scared. I wasn't scared, but I was scared, kind of a deal. I mean, I had to check my shorts. It was scary. As I came up with my rifle to engage this guy, he turned around and looked at me. He had no idea I was there. That's how this all went down. And he had an axe in his hand. Well, I figured out he brought a knife to a gunfight. It was all over with. So I jumped over that log. He had a big beard. Somebody ever has one of those, you want to get their attention, grab them by it. Tell you whatever you want to know. So I flipped him down and I drug him over to where Danny Deeds was laid up. All right? And this all happened so fast because in the initial, I was trying to tell this guy that I wasn't going to kill him. I was like, look, man, I'm not going to kill you. You can relax. But you can bet most SEALs, we don't pay attention in language class because we don't care what language you speak. All right, we don't go over there to talk to anybody. Everybody understands what the heck that means. So my stuff's kind of vague. Most of the stuff I ever learned while I was over there was to scare them. And my favorite phrase was, Allah sent me, and there's no way in heck you're getting out of this. And I didn't use heck either. But it was about that time that Axe whistled up, and he's like, there's two more coming up the mountain. And I was like, well, bring them over here to me. There was another adult male, somewhere between the age of 20 and 90, I don't have any idea all there, and a kid. And the kid was our problem. He was our primary threat. Those jokers are lethal. You turn your back on a 12-year-old boy over there, he'll cut your head off and play soccer with it. And I use that analogy because I've seen it happen. So we zip-tied him and sat him down. Well, this is where the whole thing went bad for us. Like I said, in the movie, it was reversed. So what happened was these guys came up on top of us, and then that's when the goats came up. And believe it or not, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's what changed the whole dynamic of this mission. Reason being is because those goats walk the same trail every day and have for 3,000 years. And they show up back in that village without those shepherds, the whole village comes back looking for us. For them, armed. And that guy that we were chasing for 2 years, if something seems out of place, he's gone. That's what we had to focus on. Mission priority, mission first, that whole knock-hard kind of deal. So, we turned them loose. And they were gone in a shot. It took them 15 minutes to get out of our line of sight. It took us an hour to climb up the same hill. That's how fast they are. I mean, they did it with their hands behind their back and a pair of flip-flops. It's ridiculous, man. I mean, they're good. Well, we relocated. We left that position. It was burned, so we went back to our initial in those trees. And then an hour later is when all hell broke loose, literally. I have to use that word. I know there's women, I know cousins from women, but this is what happened. And we were in a triangle formation, so to speak. I was at the very top. Actor right here, and Danny was right here, and Mikey was underneath me. Top of the mountain was 30 feet above me. And the first guy I saw, I rolled my head up. The first guy I saw had an RPG on each, RPG over each shoulder, and an AK-47. And there was about 30 or 40 guys standing right above us. And then coming down each ridgeline was a dozen or so guys. That was basically, these numbers get exaggerated and everything like that. Basically what happened, the gunfight lasted for over 3 hours, and through the middle of the gunfight, they came up from the village, and they came over the side to reinforce. That's where those numbers came from. Well, I rolled over. And right above me was a tree. And a guy pulled his head around it with an AK muzzle. And I waited. And he pulled his head back around. I looked at Mikey underneath my armpit, and I said, get back on the clock, we're fixing to get it on. And that's exactly what I said to him. I turned back around and waited, and that guy pulled his head around that tree again, and when he did, I dumped him. When I dumped him is when they unleashed on us. I initiated the whole thing. I mean, I couldn't wait around to see that they were going to, if they saw us or not. I mean, my whole attitude was they did. And, you know, I've been in a lot of gunfights. I've never been in anything like that. And, I mean, it was good. Man, they poured it on us, boy. No rockets yet, no RPGs or anything. Small arms fire, belt-fed stuff. My head was right down in between these trees. I was dug in pretty good. And the rounds were hitting in the dirt underneath me and above me. And then eventually they elevated their shot pattern. And started those trees started taking some rounds, and the first place I got hit was in my rifle. When I leaned off the mountain, I hit me in my magazine, not actually in my weapon system. I was dropping my mag to load another one, and we had to actually make these little shells. We had to use shovels and move rocks around to make shells to stand in. And when we wanted to watch the target, we leaned off the mountain and grabbed a tree. That's how steep it was. So we were positioned up kind of crazy. Well, when I reached down to grab my pack, that shelf that I made crumbled and fell apart. It was like somebody opened a trap door underneath me. And I slid right out of it. And my feet grabbed a tree root, I think, because it stopped me dead track, and my chest came up over my hips. And when that happened, I flipped. And that's when all this tumbling mess started happening. And when I hit Mikey, I was upside down and backwards. And I was full speed. All 280 pounds of me back then. And I busted him right off of that perch he was on. And we pinballed in those trees for about 200 meters. Broke through that tree line. I flipped 4 times with my legs extended. And that grass area was boulders and trees. And the grass had grown up in between it. And we hit that, it stopped us dead track. I landed on my back, I broke my back. And then Mikey landed on his face and crushed his face. I sat up, that's when they hit us with the rockets and the mortars. We made our way down. Axe came out of our left flank, took a round right in the back. Came out his left rib, dropped him on his face. I didn't see him until he crawled into the trees. Danny was still up in the tree line. I saw his body flip out, thought he was dead. He hit the rocks on his head. And he laid there. And we made a movement to go get him. And he sat up, made his way into us, not all the way. I had to grab him. We flipped into these trees, and when I sat him up, all I wanted to know was if he got the radio call off. I was like, please tell me that somebody has any kind of idea what's happening right now. And he was right here, and he couldn't hear a word I was saying. It's too loud. Eventually, he just put his hand up in front of my face, just slid up like that. And in the movie, I don't know why they did this, but they had his fingers shot off. Well, that wasn't what happened. It was his thumb. His thumb was severed, right through the webbing of his hand, because it was hanging right there. Not to get too graphic, but he pulled out some Curlex, we bandaged it up, I shoved his rifle into his chest, and we started to fight. But they were pushing past us on the high ground. So we had to constantly move. This was the first fall that we took that was straight down. This was a bad one, because it was about 35 to 40 feet. And it was the way it was positioned was kind of hard to explain, but there was a bunch of shrubs and bushes and stuff jammed down in there. Well, we fell into that. And we busted all the way through it, and when we hit the ground, we landed on top of each other and got stuck because of our gear. And that's when they hit us hard. And everybody got shot. And Danny took the worst of it. He took a round through the throat and underneath his clavicle. And we untangled ourselves, made our way out into this draw, so to speak, and started pushing down the mountain. Now, like I said before, the gunfight lasted for over 3 hours. Almost 4, actually. And what I'm about to tell you makes no sense. At all. And when I say it, it doesn't make any sense. Believe me. Because in the beginning of the gunfight, if you were somewhere where you were fighting and ineffective fire was coming into your area, well, your natural reaction, I don't care if you're military or civilian, is to move. Someone's shooting at you, get up and move. Well, we'd fall. And you'd break something. Towards the end of the gunfight, if you were somewhere where you weren't falling, you wouldn't leave it till you got shot or blown out of there, because the fall was worse. I know that doesn't make any sense. I think about it a lot. Good Lord, man. About an hour and a half into it, I was having to drag Danny. Both his femurs were broken. He had a compound fracture on one of his tib fibs, and he'd been shot 4 times that I know of. I actually tried to fire him and carry him on my shoulder 5 or 6 times, and I'd fall on top of him. And the last time I did that, he grabbed me by the back of my LBV and pulled me into him, and he said, please don't do that again. He didn't say please either. I was like, all right, sorry, man. But they got this part right in the movie. I actually had to pick him up to take a fall. And when I was turning around to take the brunt of the fall, I spun him into a bullet. And it shot him in the back of the head and killed him right then and there. And in the film, after that, they had him dramatic purpose, whatever he's alive. Nobody died without me right there. Okay? I'll put that out right now. I tried to crawl back up. I got him. And I was trying to pull him out of there. And we got hit by an RPG, and it separated us. And I fell. And I face planted into this boulder, and I broke my nose real bad. And I bit my tongue in half and swallowed it. And that incapacitated me. When I was on all fours, I finally threw it up. And when I stood up, I couldn't get to him. The problem was, once you fell a certain distance, you couldn't get back up the way you came. It's too steep. We tried. That was probably the most frustrating thing I've ever had to deal with in my entire life, was the fact that I couldn't get to one of my buddies. Even though I knew they were dead. We don't leave anybody. And I couldn't get back up there. I caught up with Axe. I was on the left side of the mountain. I was firing laterally at a group of guys. And I don't know how he got there. I don't remember passing him, but he walked out from behind this rock I was on. I almost shot him in the chest. And he sat down Indian style on my right hip. And the ground was all on fire. Most of the mountain was on fire pretty good, but it was real bad right here. And I was elbowing him. And this is the first thing he said to me that didn't have anything to do with tactics. He's like, I'm sorry, bro, I can't help you anymore, I'm blind. They shot me in the face. And in the film, they had him hit back here. I don't know why they did like that, because in real life, Matt Atkinson was shot right there. And I'm not a doctor. I'm a combat medic, though, and I have been for almost 15 years. And I don't know how he was alive. I don't know how he was talking to me. The only thing that looked human on him was his bottom lip, because his jaw was hanging on his shoulder. That's the only thing I can make out. His eyes, everything was gone. And I was like, look, man, you got to get out of here. You got to leave. And I turned around to give some cover fire, and that's when Mikey was on that boulder. And he took 2 rounds in the chest, spun him like a top. And then he sat himself up, and he got shot in the shoulder blades, dropped him on his face. And then he sat up again with our satellite phone, and that's when he got the reinforcement call in. And instead of crawling down to me, because I was waving for him, he went left. And I lost sight of him. And I could hear his gun go off. And then he started screaming for help. He's like, I need help. And then he started screaming my name. And that was the worst thing I ever heard in my entire life. It was so bad, I was actually sitting down on my boots. I was trying to reload my weapon. And he started screaming my name. It was so terrible that I covered my ears. And I put my weapon down and covered my ears, because I couldn't stand to hear him die. Which, that's a cowardice act. You don't put your weapon down in a gunfight. But I did. And they say every man has his breaking point. In the military, the way you break us is to kill us. Especially in the SEAL team. I snapped right there, like a twig, like some punk. I don't know what happened. I just couldn't handle that. He was screaming my name. I've never heard anything like that, man. I freaked out. But I got blown out of there. I caught up with Axe, and he was underneath this rock embankment. We were sitting under there together. There was a stream running around it, and I was looking at him face to face. He'd taken abdominal dressing and pulled his face together. And I was like, we're going to die. Right now. That's what I told him. And an RPG hit behind him and blew him on top of me. And when I sat him up off of me, another one hit and blew us separate directions. I never saw him again for the rest of my life. Never. I came to, I was paralyzed. I was laid on the backside of this rock. I'd been shot, fragged, broke my back, pelvis, my pants, map, GPS, compass, all that stuff was gone. I was almost naked out there. Just my boots, my shirt, my harness. I had 1 magazine left with 11 rounds. I went out with 14 or 30. So we got it on pretty good. Well, I just started to crawl. This is where this went down. I put my weapon in the crease of my elbows and started to crawl. And just started putting sand and mud in my body so I wouldn't bleed to death. And I buried myself in a shallow grave. And I didn't move another inch for the rest of the day. But I could hear the militia come down and celebrate. And that was happening right around the ridge I was laying on. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. And I started to second guess myself that my teammates were still alive. And they were torturing them. And I couldn't do nothing. And that almost made me go crazy. The fact that I couldn't help my team after they were being tortured. I don't know. Well, sun was going down. I could see something glistening in the distance as a guy leaned against the rock. He had a silver AK. And I shot at him twice and missed him. And on the third one, I hit him in the guts. And he had 2 buddies with him. I didn't see them either. It was a hunter-killer team. They came running over and hit on my side of the rock, facing the same direction I was. I had a suppressor on my weapon. I was dug in. They had no idea where it came from. And I shot those 2 guys in the back. Normally you don't shoot people in the back, but I had a pretty bad day, so they get over it. You know what I mean? So the sun went down. This is when I started to crawl. You know, nobody had Wahlberg pass out. I didn't pass out. I ain't no chunk. You know, I kept going. Man, this is the longest night of my life. Really. I was alone. And that thing I was telling you earlier about our teammates being with us, that's true. Because as an individual, I was never good at anything. Ever. I wasn't the best at anything. But if you put me with a group of guys, I could be a link. I wasn't the strongest or weakest, but I could just perform well with others. I couldn't, not by myself. So when I was alone, I had to relearn everything. And the sun was coming up. I had a long night. And I was holding on to a tree, reaching down for another one. And I felt it before I heard it. I got shot in the back. And I don't know if they found me that morning or if they've been chasing me all night. But when it hit me, I wasn't ready. Not that you get ready to be shot, but I don't know, man. My adrenaline wasn't up, I guess. Because it hurt. Good Lord, man. It hurt. And it turned me into a gainer, and I rolled down this hill about 50 feet, man, on my face, man. And I was paralyzed from the chest down. I rolled over, I put my weapon in the crease of my elbows, and I started to pull myself up the hill, and I would throw myself off the backside of it. That's how I was faster than they were. And we played this cat and mouse game for about 3 hilltops. And there was one guy who was chasing me hilltop for hilltop. He didn't have a weapon, he was a spotter. And the other 2 guys wouldn't leave the high ground. They're pretty smart. And I rolled around, dropped my bipod down, rolled my weapon up, and waited. And I let that spotter walk right into me to these chairs. And I shot him right in the teeth. And these other 2 jokers came around, I had a frag left. I let them walk right on top of me, and I fragged out, and that was it. Well, I was dying. I didn't know what to do. I reached out and grabbed a rock and drew a line in the dirt as far as I could reach it. And I was like, I'm going to crawl to that till my feet hit it. If I'm still alive, I'm going to do it again. And that's what I did. I crawled to it, feet would hit it, fall down the hill, crawl up another, draw another line. And I did that for 7 miles, and I found a waterfall. Slid down into this waterfall, actually turned upside down, took flight, I landed in the river. My head hit a boulder and split my head open. My knees hit me in the face, same time, knocked me out again. I came to, I was laid over this little shelf. And I got 2 sips out of that waterfall. Oh man, I was so thirsty. Good Lord. And somebody was screaming at me again, and 2 guys with AKs were running around the high ground trying to get leverage on me. And I swung around to engage, and right over the top of my head, about 20 feet, is where I met Muhammad Gulab. This is the man who saved my life. And I spun around on him. I had my gun at my hip, my tension out of my trigger. I didn't have to bring it to the shoulder. He was that close. And I think about this moment all the time. He's been to visit me. We've talked about it. And I was like, man, I don't know why I didn't kill you, man. He's like, I don't know why I let you live. And he walked up on me, man. He was like, American. Okay. Shampoo, hydrate. That's what he kept telling me. Shampoo, hydrate. They don't know English. I don't know who taught him shampoo. Probably one of the Army guys. They always call it Air Force. They always got shampoo. Yeah, they always got shampoo and showers. So I mean, he got up on top of me. I was dying. I was confused. And 4 of them jokers picked me up, carried me down to that village, sat me down, and gave me all the water I could drink. And they picked me up and carried me in this room, and they stripped me naked, and they started doctoring me up. And they were pulling this piece of frag out of my shin bone, and that's when I passed out. And I came to, I was dressed up in a set of those man jammies with a hat and everything. And then I was in there for about an hour, and the door kicked open, and the Taliban flooded the room. And I knew who they were. I mean, we hunt something long enough, we know what it is when it's staring us in the face. Now, plus they spoke English, and they were like, we're the Taliban. I was like, yeah, I got that. Where are we going to go from here? So I don't talk about that except with my buddies. You can use your imagination. It was bad. I mean, it wasn't a good time. They had me all day, all night, into the next morning. And then they left the room to negotiate for my head. And 3 villagers came in there and picked me up. I couldn't walk anywhere. And they carried me out of that room and down the mountain, stuck me in a hole head first, and left me there for 27 hours. And I didn't like that. You know, I like being by myself. I mean, I almost actually prefer being beat on than being isolated. I didn't care for that too much. And those villagers came and got me out of there and strategically moved me around that village for 4.5 days. The Taliban had encircled it. I'd be in a room somewhere and the wall would blow up. or a bullet would zip through that wall. Those villagers would come in there and pick me up, carry me somewhere else. I couldn't believe it. And this was one of the toughest pills I ever had to swallow, was the fact that these people were helping me. I had no idea. I didn't pay attention. I didn't know about those customs, traditions. I didn't know about any of that. And I'm very forward guy. I'll tell you straight up. Here's the deal, okay? I'm not a hero at all. Like I told you in the beginning, I'm a gunfighter. And when those people were saving my life, I was a terrorist over there. All right? And I used to keep a picture of a lady who died in the Twin Towers. Her mother gave it to me. And all she said to me was, "Make this right." So I wrote "No Mercy" on the back of it and laminated it. And I would keep it in my chest pocket. And before any operation, I'd jock up all my kit, face painted up all sadistic, vampire teeth in, werewolf contacts. We get weird. And I'd pull her picture out and stare at her and imagine her dying. Her screaming for help, for God, her building falling on top of her, her catching on fire, stuff, whatever I had to think of to work myself into a rage. And when I went out there, when I put a bullet into you, that was the nicest thing I did to you. Because I didn't care about anybody out there. I adopted that whole mentality, and like I said, I'm not embarrassed to tell you. I'm not running for public office or anything like that. I'm straight up. And I was like, hey, you're going to suffer if I get my hands on you for what you did in that city. I'm not a city boy, but I took it real personal. And when those villagers were saving my life, I was like, man, I don't know what... There were so many of them dying that I was like, you need to put me out on that doorstep and shut the door. Nobody else needs to die because of me. You have no idea. And they're like, no, that's not what we said we do. Because I thought I was an honorable man. I thought I knew what honor was. And what it all boils down to, the only thing a man really has is his word. And when he gives it, you keep it. And sure, I've done that plenty of times, man, but I'll tell you what, I didn't know ever give my word to a stranger that I'd keep him alive. And they did, at the sacrifice of the whole village. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever embraced in my entire life, was the fact that there were good people everywhere. I stopped seeing color right there. I stopped seeing religion right there. And he just looked at me and he's like, war is hell. That's what he told me. I was like, yeah, man. All right. This is when Spanky came in. July 3rd, right? 2nd. July 2nd. Around midnight, I was laying in this riverbed waiting. The Green Berets and the Rangers already come in and found me. And I'll never forget it. The villagers were carrying me up this hill, and I heard my name in English for the first time. And I looked up, and this Army Ranger came around the corner, man. I never hugged a man like that, ever. He got a hold of me, and I'm sure he was like, maybe. They got weird. I was like, you got to get in here, bro. Man, I was so happy to see them. And then about 3 seconds later, it was typical what you'd imagine. I was like, I ain't never going to live this down, getting rescued by the Army. They're like, no, you're not. We pick on each other. That's what we do. That's what men do. And that's how we get our morale up. And we do that between the services because it's tradition and it's history and it makes us men. Don't be a civilian trying to pick on a military guy. It ain't going to work out.